You walked away from a stable, high paying engineering job to teach long before there were books, there were movements, or national spotlights on the kind of work you're now doing. Walk me through that moment when you knew it wasn't a choice, you almost had to go.
Yeah, there was lots of moments, So as an engineer, I was building big buildings, and so working in commercial construction. Um, I think that there was a lot of taps on the shoulder. So, a buddy of mine, one day, he just said, "Hey, I need somebody to tutor Saturday on math at Upward Bound. That's a program helping first generation students who go to college." And so I was like, Saturday mornings. I said, I don't even see Saturday morning. I don't even know what Saturday morning looks like. I don't wake up till Saturday at least noon, if not later. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm out. I'm out late. I'm not missing any happy hours. So part of the happiness that I felt in engineering was because I didn't have to miss any parties. I had enough money to go. I went to every bachelor party. I went to every celebration that came up in my life because money wasn't as much of a problem as it was throughout growing up and in college. Friday nights was I'm out. I'm out. I don't think I ever sat at home on one Friday unless I don't remember being sick ever, but I'm just thinking I was always out. So he was like 2 to Saturday mornings. I'm like, that just doesn't work. It doesn't fit in my schedule. But I knew he needed a math teacher and I wanted to help. And I said, look, okay, and this wasn't in one conversation. It was in multiple conversations because I was like, I ain't doing that. You better find somebody else. And he couldn't find anyone. So I was like, okay. And I said, you got 2 months. You got to find somebody in 2 months because I'm not giving up every Saturday of my life, every Friday night of my life because I got to be in Oakland at 8 o'clock in the morning tutoring math. And so, long story short, I showed up in my first class, made that sacrifice, like grumbling my way all the way back to Oakland. And I realized that some of the kids were showing up ready to learn and whatever. And I love math. And so we're going to get some stuff done. And the first day, this young man walks in late. And I'm like, he was like the most like he's like the really popular kid. So he walks in, everyone like turns their head, everyone says, and then they look at him, and then I'm like, "Who is this? Who is this person?" And they're like, "Oh, he's in this class." I'm like, "He's like a half an hour late. What do you mean he's in this class?" So they're like, "Oh." And then they kind of like it's no big deal. I'm like, "Hey, come here, come here." He has to go give everybody a hug. Everyone wants to give him a hug. Guys want to give him a high five. Girls want to give him a hug. He's greeting everybody. I'm like, that's gonna stop. If you want to do the greetings, get here early so you can do all your hugs and greetings outside. But once you walk in here, we on learning mode. And why are you late? And so he's like, "Oh man, why you don't make a big deal? It's no big deal." I said, "Okay, well, look, you sit up here." He said, "Oh no, I don't sit up here. I sit in the back." I'm like, "Not today. Not today. Not today. You don't sit in the back. You sat in the back with some other teacher, and you sat in the back when you may have shown up on time, but you don't get to choose your seat today." And I realized he was upset, but it was okay. Like, you're gonna sit up here in the front. Not only because everybody wanted to have a conversation with him, but we're not just derailing the thing. So anyway, I'm giving this long story to say, I was teaching math at this program, and on my way home, that kid who I was only planning to be engaging with for 2 months of my life, like it was playing in my head like what I was going to say to him the next week. Like I was preparing a speech. I was preparing for him to be on time. I'm going to give him a lot of high fives. I'm preparing for him to be late. I'm going in. And I'm like, Ashanti, why are you taking this so serious? Like, this is one young man. This is you only gonna be here for 2 months. You're on a short-term engagement. Why are you tripping? And I think what was happening in my system is that this call to be helping young people find their way through life in a different way was calling me. It was calling me already. So that was the one. And then I was tutoring in another place called the Huntington Learning Center, kind of like under this, I don't know if they're around anymore, Sylvan Learning Centers kind of things where they would give students reinforcement on their things they were learning in school, just so they helped them with their grades. And the director there said, Sean, I want to have a talk with you. And I was like, okay, yeah. And she said, I would like to invite you to be a partner here. I was like, what does that mean? She's like, well, you're an engineer, you're taking care of our SAT prep and stuff. We would love you to be a partner, which means that you will help us build this business. And I was like, I'm an engineer. Like I'm just here tutoring, making some extra money for traveling. You know what I'm saying? I'm not. And it was a call already from my heart to pull away from engineering. And I was like, I think it was scary. It was more scary than anything. So I was like, no, I'm not, no. And I pretty much like having that moment of like realization. And even after I had a transformational experience there with a young man named Lucas who couldn't multiply polynomials. So all that to say, I was very happy according to my thoughts that I was in this engineering world making good money. But I think my soul was like, there's something else that will make you feel more alive. And I think because the soul work didn't pay the same bills, didn't allow me to have the same type of lifestyle, I ran from it. And so it was lots of little touches along the way. And then I think the final straw was my final project. I had changed companies from that company, made more money. I was a project manager, assistant project manager on a big, huge problem project in San Jose, California. And while I was on vacation, my building caught on fire, and that doesn't mean less job security. It actually means more job security because now you have two projects at the same time. You got the fire project and then the original project. So, but it just made it made the call. It made my desire to be like, oh, this is what I want to spend my life doing. I mean, I love the construction industry still. I see projects, I'm looking up and I'm like, oh, look at that. Look at that beam. Look at that I beam. Look at that crane. Look at that, all the stuff I see, I miss it sometimes, but I'm clear that the work that I was put here to do is this work. And so, yeah, that was a long answer, but it's a lot of little steps along the way.
I think what you're getting at is so crucial is, and I love the language you used around like the soul and how little attention we pay to that part of us in general, but especially when it comes to job stuff. And it seemed like for you, like many of us, we get conditioned to make decisions about the work that we do based on the outcomes that we receive, not necessarily the change that happens within us. And I'm curious for a guy out there that is sitting behind a desk and is, it's an Excel sheet or coding or whatever it is. And he's maybe he's dying inside, but maybe even not fully dying inside. Maybe he's still, it's at that point where he realizes, like, I feel like there's more, but I'm not sure. What are some guiding steps you would recommend? Because obviously, just sounds like you grapple with this. You can't just jump ship right away and sell everything and hope it works out. You have practical things you do need to take care of. And at the same time, it seems like you got to the point of no return where it feels like I'll just figure it out. Cause actually, like the universe, there's too many signs and too strong a resonance within me that I can't stay here.
Yeah, beautiful question. I think that so when I go to events and I'm talking to people about this work, I tell people I don't know that I'm inviting anybody to leave their career and start service work per se. What I am inviting people to think about is where do I feel like I come alive? And if your daily job lets you feel like this is what I was put here for, then you're in the right spot, right? There are some people who they love engineering. They talk engineer. Lunchtime, they're eating engineering. They go to weekend engineering things with their kids. That's who they are. They're building backyard roller coasters. Like that's the thing that they do. Now, I l- I'm good at math. I like doing some math, but I'm not having no conversation with somebody about math. Like I'm not it happened once on a plane, and I realized I'm not as much of a math nerd as I thought. Because this guy was saying stuff to me, and I felt so embarrassed that I felt my eyes, like, rolling in the back of my head, like, I am literally falling asleep. Like, haven't had this happen since college. This guy is talking about math with a level of joy. He thought because I said I was a math teacher that I also like to talk about math. I mean, I'm only a nerd sometimes, you know what I'm saying? Like, when I'm not teaching math, I'm not talking about math, you know? And I think that what I invite people to do is like, what are the things that make you feel like this is what I was put here for? And maybe you just test the waters. Maybe you don't want to be a mentor. Maybe you don't want to help other people. Maybe you don't really like people. Like, what is a thing that you like to do? Right? I mean, everyone has their things and everyone likes something different. So it's really about like finding alignment. Now, when I was in college, someone told me once, Ashanti, you should be a teacher. And I felt insulted because my belief about who I was not going to be a teacher like my mom and be broke. Because for me, that when I heard about being a teacher, I remember what it was like for my mom to be a teacher and what it was like for me to be a young man who was never the answer was always no when you want to do something. No, you want to do something, no, you want to get something, no, you want to have something, no, you can't buy nothing. And I was like, this is ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? The answer is always no to maybe you can get to a maybe, right? And that was because anything you asked to do may cost money. So it was easier for my mom to just say no, not because for any reason, philosophical reason, just because she has no money to let me do anything. And so I was just always like, when I got my first job, man, it was going down. I was like, I got my own money, right? So I think that when I invite people to think about their passion, their career, their life, is like, what are the things in my life that are causing me to feel like I'm not fulfilled? Now, look, some people can't make a decision because they already have a mortgage and kids and blah blah blah. Thank goodness I didn't have any of that. I had myself to take care of, and it was easy for me to say I'm making it a shift because I actually thought I was just going for teaching for 2 years. I thought I was going to do like the Peace Corps, right? Go for 2 years, have this big resume building for my grad school potential plan in the future. Like, you know what I'm saying? And then go back to the money. And that 2 years has turned into 21 years in this work, right? And so it started as a teacher and then it became as a nonprofit, which is the opposite end of financial well-being to be leading a nonprofit, right? That's it's a whole nother world. So I think I invite people to say, okay, here's the thing. And if I want to test it out, maybe go volunteer. Find an organization doing that kind of thing, go volunteer. Dedicate an hour a month, an hour a week, whenever that fits in your calendar. And then your heart will tell you. And so the question is if you're willing to listen to your heart compared to your head, because I know that my heart was saying I should be doing one thing, but my head was like, I'm not going to be poor. I didn't work as hard to barely make ends meet. You know what I'm saying? It was when I made the decision, it was almost a quick decision. And probably it would need to be a quick decision because I probably would have found all kind of excuses not to make the decision. And so, yeah, I just invite that's the invitation is just alignment with your soul and your purpose and your passion and whatever words people use for those things out there, whatever things that are guiding you, I'm clear that the things that are guiding me was like, you're gonna live a life of service, Ashanti. This is the like you could go and be selfish and make money and just do that, but you're not fulfilled and it's only gonna be long, so it's only gonna last so long, right? Between you either sabotage it or that it just eats you alive, right? And I think that's often what happens with people. They just become like the walking dead, like they're alive, but they're not fulfilled. And so you can almost see it in their eyes. They're just like you see those movies where they make fun of like business people and they're just like duh, duh, and they're just walking. They're all just like robotically walking and doing clock it in, clock it out, walking to lunch, eating. It's that thing, right? Because people know it. People know it's a cycle, and 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 look, luckily I didn't let it last that long before I came into a place of just dreading it. I was I loved my job every day until I left it, and then I loved the new job, and it was that kind of journey.
Yeah, I think a big factor you're bringing up, which is so important to mention, right, is our upbringing so deeply informed the way that we see the world. And we either go to extremes, I find. We either want to replicate it exactly, right? We want to be exactly like both of our parents or someone in our family, or the opposite. In your case, when it comes to finances in particular, like, hey, I felt the pain of not having enough, being told, no, which within reason was understandable. Your mom was just doing her best. And in some ways, I imagine what you're saying is, well, if I have an opportunity to not have to say no, like, why would I? You know? But then ironically, coming back to the soul question, saying, well, yeah, but what matters most? And it seems like that thing in you that felt called transcended the more pragmatic sides of wanting to make money. And making money is obviously not bad, but it's interesting because you have a very unique experience working with, I imagine, the smartest of the smart people who also are making a ton of money and just living a lifestyle of like going out every weekend is certainly a small percentage, right? Of people who can do that and not think twice. And yet now, a lot of your work with young men are coming from communities and places where they might not know anyone who is in that world or even think about those things. So I'm curious how you talk about work and career and helping young men find jobs that both feel like, hey, this can take care of you and your family, and also it can feel, resonant because as we both know, the socioeconomic gap is one of the widest in this country. And it's something that every man is feeling very deeply and very immediately. And it's something I think a lot of men are asking that question in regards to how we approach work.
Yeah, I think one of the things I've felt as you're asking the question, but also that was just kind of like passing through my mind is that when I became a teacher, my students, some of them didn't know until I would tell them I had a speech one day and I was like, or something about, why I'm here. I never wanted to make them feel like guilty that I took this job, but I did want them to know that I was here in this job not for a job. Like I was here in this space to like do something to give back to my community. And Ashanti, if I was focusing on me, what I want, this would not be where I would be. You know what I'm saying? Like, well, actually, it's like duality. I would be there because I chose to be there. But if I was living the way I had lived before, where I was focusing on me, I would have chosen something different. And so I think what I was trying to not only help the young people understand is that you have a choice. Like the life that you decide to live. I told young people, 'cause I was teaching teenagers, high school. I said, look, at this point, you have a lot of self control. And sometimes you don't exercise it, but you have self control. You decide whether I'm going to do my homework or not, whether I'm going to come at lunch and get help or not, whether I'm going to come after school when he tells me to come after school or not. You making a lot of individual decisions as an adult almost. You're like, oh, this decision I'm going to make because I get to make it, and I don't care if it harms my future. That's an adult type of decision. Like when you're a kid, your parents or your guardians are protecting you to not make any bad decisions. They're like really hovering you. You don't really get to move far from their control. But once you get room to now make some decisions, I left the house at this time to go to school. What if I decide not to go to school? Well, you're going to make a adult decision. Now, you're a kid making an adult decision that I'm going to choose to not go where I'm supposed to go. I'm going to go where I want to go. Those are adult decisions. And I tell young people, the more you begin to like think about the decisions you make and how they will affect you down the line, see the immature part of you, which is going to make a decision based on right now. Oh, I want to do this. I don't want to do that. And I don't think about any consequences. That's an immature type of adult. And so I think that what I try to always help them see was that every decision you make right now is becoming the adult you're going to be. So if you're a person who doesn't keep your commitments, you said you were going to come see me after school yesterday. What happened? Oh, well, blah, 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 blah. Blah. Okay. So you make excuses. Is that the kind of adult you want to be in the world, that you don't keep your word? You said you were going to come. I'm offering you help. You said you want to pass this class. I offered to support you. I said, come here after school or come at lunch. You didn't come. So what does that mean? Well, XYZ, right? Whatever they say. I'm not really here to get a gotcha. It's more like, help me understand because I don't need to pass this class. I've already passed this class. I'm trying to help you. And so when I help young people just put in plain language, like, here's what your actions are showing me as an educator. Like, I don't know what your life is like. I don't know what you're going through, but here's what your actions based on what I'm seeing, because all I can reflect on is what I see. And then I try and get them to tell me what am I missing. And so I think like what it was about was like, oh, you know what? This is what I'm good at. I'm good at this, translating real life to a teen who is making some immature decisions. Now, when I was that age, I wasn't making immature decisions. I was focused. Well, as I was in high school, I was on track in high school, but middle school, I was a mess. So I know what it's like to be a bad student. I know how it is to be treated like a bad. And so I think like the layers of like career life that have come through or lessons that I got to help young people see. Like, so let me tell you about a couple of people who I went to school with who did XYZ, who were really brilliant, really smart, but chose not to use it. Like they're just barely scraping by. What kind of life do you want to live in the future? And help them to visualize what they want. Because if you can help them visualize what they want, and you can say, hey, do you have people in your life who live like that, who have a lifestyle where they don't have to worry about paying bills? And if you don't, wouldn't that be nice to experience? But you can't do it if you're just scraping by. If your idea is just get by, then you're not going to live a life second to none. You're going to I'm not saying you can like fall into something, entrepreneurship. Lots of people, they said there's more millionaires who are have GEDs than who have, PhDs. So it doesn't mean that you have to have some kind of formal education. It means that, but you have put your time in. You're not looking for the easy way out. And so I think I was always around, how do I translate to them this adult life, and from a life of a person who came from making money and now coming to a job where I'm not really making money, but I am knowing that if you want to have a life that you can be like, I get to do whatever I want when I want to do it, relatively within reason. I mean, you can't almost can't even say those kind of statements anymore because sadly, there's a lot of people out here doing whatever they want and they're thinking that it's okay. So, for the caveat of any person who wants to like misconstrue the words, I'm talking about within reason and within legality. I'm talking about like if you are trying to be a good person in the world, trying to create a family, build a life, and feel fulfilled. I think it takes some work and it takes hard work. And so that's my work has been trying to help translate that for young people who sometimes adults have gotten so much adult language in them that they don't know how to translate it to young people talk. And some of them have either purposely forgotten what it was like to be a teen or by trauma have pushed it so far that they can't even see what it was like to be a teen. And so they try and tell teenagers like me, like an adult. And you're like, yeah, but they're not. They're not an adult. And I think how you have that dance between navigating those worlds.
Such a core point, and now it's it certainly starts with kids, but now even young men who are, in their 20s and now even 30s are experiencing the same sense of aimlessness and feeling lost and isolated. And I'm so appreciative of the name you chose, which we'll get into in a bit, of the Ever Forward Club. I think even that word, forward, or having foresight, keeping your head up, it requires some sort of vision to see beyond your current circumstances, because so many of us just tend to keep our head down and we just say, well, life's tough and this is going on. Or on the other side, you mentioned this, we're just impulsive and we take the easy way out. Well, I'm not going to go to that study group, or why not just blow my money on this, or why not just sleep in a bit here. And I think what you're getting at is so empowering to any guy listening, is that circumstance you're in, no matter how difficult it is, you always have a choice as the individual making it. Now, it's not to say that that choice is incredibly difficult, and some people are put in consistently more difficult situations that make it hard to choose the right thing. And that, I think that's something we haven't done a great job as a society of considering. And at the same time, it sounds like what you're getting at is that there's nothing more, I think, for a person to hear than you can. You have the ability, you have the dignity, you have the capacity, whatever that is, to pursue and step into it, to your point with the caveat of things that are worth pursuing. But I think so many men, I mean, I just started getting into this work, and I'm curious if you think what you think about this, but really also working with men, a lot of the message just distilled down to say, you have problems, but you're not the problem. You haven't changed, but you can change. And helping empower them to say, you have a choice. So just start making a bunch of tiny choices that add up to one macro choice, which is your life, to be the person that you could be if you put forth some effort and you have the vision to see who that is.
Yeah. And I think that, in my work with men, I've been on a men's team since 2010. I've seen lots of men come, go, and definitely what we used to exist 10 years ago, 15 years ago is very different than now. The men who come now are in different stages of their life. I mean, as they always have been. I mean, I think that, I've invited hundreds of men to come to a men's circle. Hey, I'm on a men's team. Our men's team is pretty open. So it's like, it's not private. So people can come and check it out. And I think that if you have not been in a space where it is expected that you open up, and no one's forcing you, but it's expected that you will have a place where you can be honest, open, and truthful. It's inspected when you say you're having a day that feels like a 2 on a scale from 1 to 10. It's always respected how much ever you're willing to give and to open up in that space. But it is a space that is almost like this is the community of men who say, I don't have to pretend here. I don't have to act like I'm not going through something because I want to impress people here, because they're here to get what they need to get and I'm here to get what I need to get. And I need to know that my gut sense right now says I need to talk about this thing. And sometimes the thing I really need to talk about is not the thing I want to talk about, but I'm clear that, oh, I'm making that choice. I'm making that choice to like, okay, I'm not gonna talk about it this week. I'll wait till next week. Okay, I want to talk about it this week. I'll talk about it till next week. And I've done it. I've done it. As a member of a team for many years. I've had situations that I were going through in my life, but okay, there's some other things on the agenda that's a little bit busier than what I need. And so I didn't go getting what I needed. And sometimes you can get to a place of frustration because you're like, no one's making time for the things that I need to talk about. But what I need to be doing in that space is saying, I need some time, right? And that is the expectation of our circle together is to say, you got to let it, if we don't ask you, say something. That's part of the journey, and that's part of the excitement of the work ahead. And I'm really juiced about that because I think ultimately it is exactly what I know that we need, right? We need to have a conversations around this. We need to talk about it. We need to know that we're not alone. We need to know that there's nothing wrong with us. Those are the things that I believe.
Through the Million Mask movement, you've helped thousands of young men take off the masks they hide behind. Tell me about a moment or maybe some patterns that you might see that you'll never forget when you saw someone drop that mask, or you were in a series of situations where you saw people drop their mask and be real for the first time. Like you said, they stop pretending. They not just let their guard down, but as you're saying, they actually step into the moment and take up their space, and they share and they express who they are.
The mask we first did it was in a documentary called The Mask You Live In. That was about masculinity, American masculinity, and how America's hyper masculine narrative of being a man is really hurting our boys. And what we see more than ever is our boys are not only hurt by what society has done to them in terms of the rules of what masculinity has done, of pushing boys to be emotionless when we are fully emotional beings who feel lots of things. It is about that. And I think when we did the mask in that documentary, it was the first time I ever done it because I had a group of young men when they were asking to film our circle. And I said, well, these young men don't open up. So you probably want to go to one of our other clubs that has a more robust circle. They're opening up. Those young men are talking about their feelings. We have youth leaders. And they were like, well, where are you working? I said, well, I'm at a school at my alma mater, Fremont High School in Oakland. These young men don't open up. They want to rather have a physical fight than talk about their feelings. And somebody will gladly every week start a fight just to not talk about how they feel. And so I was like, well, this is not helping. They want to come and see them not connecting. That's what they're going to see. And I was like, well, let me try one more thing because I know they're afraid to talk about it. What if I don't make them talk about it? What if I don't even give them a heads up about where we're going? What if I just ask them to write about it? So normally when we're going to talk about some emotional topic, I would invite them to take a moment. Okay, we're going to, I would preempt it. Like we're going to go into some deep topics and then all of a sudden you'll see I didn't catch it till later looking back. And you're like, somebody's going to be like, look at his shoes. Look at his shoes. And then somebody will make fun of it. And then that dude says, man, what you talking about? Well, look at your blah, blah, blah. And then now we got into a bickering match because somebody felt some real talk happening coming. And I realized, I said, I'm not even going to preempt it. I'm going to say, hey, here's what we're going to do. I'll take this piece of paper and I want you to write things on the front that you let people see and things on the back you don't usually let people see. That's the mask. That was the first time we'd ever done it. And when it worked, and not only was I blown away, I was like, my. And I'm pulling this out to show you one mask that really stands out to me. And it's a mask that I've shown around the world because I think it really telling about how the mask works. So the front of the mask is the words you see on the front. So happy, can you read them?
Yes. Okay.
Happy,
Happy, caring.
caring, and outgoing. That's the front of the mask. I mean, I don't know if it shows, but I'll just tell you what it says. So for those who are just listening, there's a picture, a circle with a face, some eyes that have the eyebrows looking kind of down, um, more of like in a curiosity kind of mode. The four words on the front of the mask are happy, smart, outgoing, and caring. And then the back of the mask, I can't see, but you can see the words have bled through. The words are bleeding through from the back. The words of the person who wrote on the back. th- Can you see that word?
Yeah, I think you're gonna have to read it to me. They bled through so much. I actually thought it was part of the front,
Yeah, yeah.
which is a deep analogy in and of itself. But please go ahead and share what the word is.
The word is anger. 17 times he wrote the word anger. So you got this kid who's smart, caring, outgoing, and what was the last word? Caring, outgoing, and happy. Happy, smart, outgoing, and caring. But on the back, just like not talking about, not showing 17 times anger. Now, here's what I have seen, and here's what I know. That wasn't one of the first masks, but that was a mask. That was one of the masks when I saw it. Not only did I feel it, like in my house, you're not allowed to be angry. My mom was the only person allowed to be angry in my house. Right. So like I always had to tamper my anger. Like if she said something to me, did something that I didn't like, I always had to pretend like I didn't feel it. That was just kind of the rules. Now, what ends up happening? That stuff is going somewhere. So in elementary school, you know what happened? 23 suspensions is what happened, all for fighting. I didn't start any of the fights, but I was so grateful when somebody gave me permission in my immature elementary self to punch them in the face because I had a lot of anger built up inside that I never got to talk about, never stressed, never expressed. And I was a walking little time bomb. I was a walking time bomb. Other couple of weeks, I'm getting suspended. I'm mostly fighting with one guy who always wants to test my buttons, but most other people then wants to jump in and they want to add to the mix and then they get some. And then like I spread it around, but I never started any of the fights. I'm clear about that because I don't like to fight. But I was clear there's rules in my community about not accepting a challenge, about walking away, about letting people pick on you, about letting people just call you names. Like there's a lot of rules about what to do when you walk away from a fight. So I just accepted every invitation to a fight. And that became my calling card of like, what's wrong with this kid? Like I was smart in class. I could do the work. The work wasn't hard. It was just, I wasn't engaged in school, but I did the work, you know? And I realized that, oh, this is what's happening. And so the journey of you thinking about like all these masks we make masks for people around the world. So that was a teenager, that was a high school student. I'll show you one for a man who's 33. I'll show you one. This is a man right here, 33 years old. Let me see if I can see it. So on the top there, you see it's let me see, helpful, cheerful, and engaged. That's the front of the mask. And on the back of the mask for this 33-year-old male, it says struggling, angry, anxious.
Mm,
Now, these are just two. I mean, I can show you masks from all over the world. We've collected over 80,000 masks from more than 100 countries. And what we know is that behind what people see on the outside, there's so much happening with people on the inside. And our work is inviting people to realize that you're not alone. How do we unmask healthy relationships? How do we help people realize that sometimes our relationships are falling apart because we're being who they need us to be, not being who we need to be. And then once we are tired of acting, then the real us pops out. And then now you're trying to like convince the person you're who you were, but you weren't that person in when you first began because you were just doing who they needed you to be to make it to the next step. And what ends up happening oftentimes is the masks get heavy, the armor gets unbearable. The chains create sparks. And I think that's part of the work that we're trying to invite people to say is, well, look, I know that in certain times I got to put on a mask. If I go have to meet with, if I'm at an event and something happened, we had an event a couple of weeks ago and it was a lot of things falling apart behind the scenes. And some of it was falling apart on stage. And my brain was like, stay cool, stay cool, stay cool, stay cool, right? And I sometimes wear it on my face. I wear sometimes frustration on my face. I'm a very expressive face, right? But sometimes I'm just like, in my mind, I'm like, taking a deep breath. Cause I know that if I don't, it's gonna be ugly. And that's not good, right? But if you don't know yourself well enough, it builds up because you have to be the nice guy on the stage, and all of a sudden it's gonna come out against somebody who doesn't even deserve it because it wasn't even them who caused it. And so the part of the work is recognizing these masks are sometimes heavy, and sometimes some people forget who they really are because they put on the mask for so long.
yeah, that's deep. That last part, something I really agree with and resonate with, and I'm really struck by, especially that first story about the anger. Many of us men have a lot of silent anger, and one of the biggest detriments I think as a society that we've told, especially men, is anger is bad. And something I've learned in my work, my training is like, no, it's really good. Like it's not bad and good emotions. Anger is a protective emotions. It shows you what you care about. It shows you what you want to keep from compromising. And, you mentioned this with like walking away from a fight, right? Like part of the reason why it's so important to not just oversimplify it and say, oh, there's this overly passive thing, just walk away, is because in some ways, if you don't stand up for you, who will? And even if it means that you get beat up, at least you care enough about yourself to defend yourself and to say, hey, I'm here. And like, maybe right now you're treating me like this, but I'm telling you, I'm going to keep showing up till you realize that's not how you can treat me. And I think a lot of men suffer in silence, and deep down, they really want to stand up for themselves. They want to make a space for themselves. They want to share what's going on. But so much of them is just scared because they say, well, what will people think? And will I be too much? And why should I rely on others when I can figure it out myself? And it's that whole self reliance and that isolation, that need to kind of carry everything on your own, that I think that mask that you showed is like everything on the outside that kid was doing was right. He was hitting all the boxes society asked him to. The issue is deep down, that wasn't the thing he most needed to be seen by. And I think when you can, and it sounds like you did this, when you can see a kid's inner world and what they really need and what they care about, then immediately it tends to have this healing component, because then they're saying, man, that's all I actually want. I don't want someone to fully give in to everything that I'm saying, but I don't want advice. I don't want them to tell me this is what I need to do or don't need to do. Man, I actually just want to be like, hey, I see that you look kind of angry. Like, do you want to talk about that? Instead of someone being like, well, don't get angry, keep your mouth shut, don't do this, don't do that. And I think it points earlier to what you're saying, and so many of us have this issue is like, as adults, we unnecessarily like put barriers to kids and tell them what they shouldn't or shouldn't do. And instead of empowering them to actually say, most of the time, it's not a bad thing what you're doing. It's just a little misguided. Let's explore that. Let me rock with you. Let me work with you. And let's see what's inside, and let's just redirect it. And then the kid's like, oh, you get me? Like, I'm on your team. I'm here.
Yeah, and when you talked about the anger too, is like also it's also used as a cover up emotion, right? So I've told some young men in my classes and in the work, I'm like, do you know you're super emotional? What? Ain't emotional? What are you talking about? You talking about because they don't realize anger is an emotion. But what they do is they basically are singular driven in one emotion. They don't know how to navigate embarrassment. Oh, the girl said no, you couldn't have her phone number, so you called her a bitch. Like, where'd that come from? Like, how'd you go from thinking she was cute and you want to date her to now calling her a name, a derogatory name? Oh, because you got embarrassed and now you don't know how to do an embarrassment. So you turn everything into anger. Your friend said something you didn't like. And so instead of you like feeling like your feelings were hurt and you were feeling embarrassed, or you felt some kind of like you were treated poorly, you turn it into anger because now you want to fight. So because in our community, definitely community I live in, anger is respected more than having a full range of emotions. Young men just learn to turn everything into anger, turn it all into anger. Like, I'm mad, I'm mad, I'm mad. What are you mad about? When I was an administrator, most of my conversations with young men who got kicked out of class because they threw a chair, they called the teacher a name, they did with XYZ, they were dealing with some other emotion that was anger was just the only way to get attention. Oh, the teacher sat you by the kid who's been making fun of you. You already talked to her about moving you away from that kid. She then moved you right next to him. And so because you can't snitch and you can't call her over in the middle of class and tell her that this kid is picking on you, but you'd already asked her the other day to move you away from him. And now what's happening? Now he's bothering you again. So instead of you knowing how to deal with it, you throw a chair. Hey, makes sense once you understand the details. It doesn't make sense in the moment. So now you're kicked out of class. You're in my office, and I'm like, "What's going on with you?" I'm like, "Stop pumping your fist. Stop pumping your fist, right?" Because that's what happens to these boys. Their emotions are just pumping through their veins. I'm like, "What's going on?" And they're mad because they got a referral because the teacher committed to moving the kid away from them and moved them right. So now we got a situation where the kid's feeling slighted, and our work is like, you felt like somebody didn't listen to you. They didn't care about you. They didn't take care of you like they said they would. And so now you're hurt. And now, but because hurt is not allowed in our community, anger is allowed, at least for your peers. Forget the teacher, right? Because who I need to impress? I don't need to impress this teacher. I need to impress the 30 people in this class and the other 30 in the next class and 30 in the next class and the 200 I'm going to see at lunchtime. I got to impress them. I don't got to worry about this. I'm only here for an hour a day. I got to be with those people for the rest of the day. And so what's happening with young people is they're doing what they do to survive. And so this kid throws a chair, and when I first read through a chair, I'm like, what the heck is wrong with you? That's my first response. Like, what is wrong with you throwing a chair, man? And then they then shut down, right? Because now you're judging them based on the referral, right? So there's all these things you have to deal with when you deal with humans. Now I'm talking about a school setting, but it happens when you meet a friend and you're like, dude, what's going on? How you doing? Hey, what's happening? What's up with that? Hey, why haven't I heard from you in a while? Why you never respond to my messages? And depending on the friend, they may go into it, or they may be like, yeah, I just been busy. I just been busy. I don't want to get into it, right? They may not be pumping their fists, but they may be inside like, I called you once, you didn't respond to my call. Like I can't tell you that I'm hurt because it's it's not tough to be like you. I felt hurt. I felt left alone. I felt isolated. I felt you forgot about me. And so since men have put these shells around ourselves, we wear them and we adorn them, and then all of a sudden we don't know why we're feeling like some kind of disconnection. And so I think our work is just it's so many layers of it, right? It's not only what we're dealing with boys; it's the little boys inside of all of us who may not have gotten what they needed or got seen in the way that they needed to be or wanted to be seen. And hey, we get now as adults to be like, oh, wait a minute, I may need to create some new spaces around myself so that I can fulfill those things and parts of myself that weren't previously fulfilled.
Yeah, brilliantly said. I was tracking the whole time and just resonating so deeply. And I think that's why it's so important to not see the mask on the surface as reality. When a lot of times, when especially men express themselves in more extreme ways, it's actually a cry for help. And if we look at it on the surface, like that kid's just angry, right? Then we miss the whole message. Something in my work and trauma informed stuff is that, you know, what happens when you're traumatized is you believe the lie that you don't have the ability to be seen nor make decisions because what happened to you was not decided by you and you wouldn't have picked that. And so when you go throughout life, instead of feeling like you can share the vulnerability of not knowing what to do with what happened to you, guess what you try to do? You try to get control. You try to take power. You try to be dominant. Why? Not because you want those things in general, but because that feels like the only justice to regaining some sense of autonomy as a person. Because that person, that self was taken essentially when the trauma happened. And if we can see that as a cry for help, as a desire to retake a place in the world to say, I have to yell because no one's listening to me. I have to throw a chair because no one's looking at me. It doesn't excuse the action. I'm sure you address that directly, but it's important to validate and be like, I hear you. Like when you threw that chair, part of you felt like you're going to see me and this is all I can
Mhm.
do to be seen. I think that's so important. And it's why we're doing men's work because I think we just don't understand how men operate. A lot of times we expect men to be emotional like women. And it's also just as wrong to say just because you're emotional that that's a feminine trait. To your point, you tell these boys, hey, you're emotional, which the research actually shows boys are statistically more emotional than girls, meaning the amount of emotions they show and to the
Yeah.
depth or the degree that they show them is more. So let's talk about that a little bit about what got you into the boys' work specifically. In your book, Diary of a Confused Educator, and through the early years of Ever Forward Club, you didn't wait for data or validation or a lot of the statistics we both know now. You just showed up for these young men. So I'm curious, what made you trust that immediate action and presence as being enough and not needing to wait for other forms of validation or affirmation?
Yeah. Well, I mean, looking back is easier to put the pieces together. I think when it was happening, I was a teacher who was failing. Like I had left this career making a lot of money. Now I'm making peanuts and I'm doing a horrible job. Like I have smart kids in my class who are failing algebra and I know they're smart. I can tell, I can see how they intuit on things. I can see how quick they are with their tongue. I can see their gift of gab. And I'm like, you're just using it for all the wrong reasons and for all the wrong ways. Like you're trying to make me look dumb. And I don't need to prove to you how smart I am. There's nothing about what this relationship is where I need to prove to you how smart I am. I already think I'm smart. and I already got a job. You know what I'm saying? So I got two careers, by the way. I don't even need this job. You know what I'm saying? Like in my mind, I'm like trying to help them translate. But what I recognized was that their need to do that amongst their peers, their need to show up in that way was like a missing moment. And so I said, look, I can't do what I need to do in class because in class, you're fighting me on everything. So I'm going to invite you to lunch. And I invited these young men. I said, I'll buy you lunch once a week. Exchange for lunch, you're going to teach me how to be a better teacher. That was my premise. Like, so obviously I'm doing something wrong because I'm smart, you're smart. The information I need to get to you is somehow meeting your mind, your brain, your amygdala, your prefrontal cortex as a danger. So you're pushing against it, you're ignoring it, you're running from it. So teach me what to do to do better. Now, obviously, I know the math. It's not like they're going to teach me how to teach math, but I need to learn what I was missing because I know that I could do the work. I was confident in my ability to teach math. And the fact that I got smart kids failing doesn't feel good to me. Like some teachers, I met plenty of teachers who are like, well, they don't do the work. They fail the class. And I don't hold that context. I'm like, no, I need to figure out what I need to do differently, what I need to do to meet them where they are. And that's how it all kind of began. And so when I started those lunch meetings, it was just conversations. Everyone do a check-in. We have food together. We talk about what's going on, what's the good, the bad, the ugly. And then at the end, I'm doing some matchmaking. Okay, who who's struggling? What struggle? Okay, who needs help in math? Okay, math. Who's doing good in math? Math. Okay, I need y'all to meet after school. Come here, meet after school, or meet tomorrow at lunch. Like you got to meet. And so it was like kind of like me just trying to like orchestrate what was getting in the way. It was a space where we weren't ashamed to say I was struggling with a certain subject because I know somebody in this room can do good at that subject and they can help me with it. And then maybe I'm good at another thing that I can help them with. And so it was like this kind of mutual kind of like support space where it wasn't like I need something. I feel like I'm the needy person. No one else in here needs something because we all needed different things. And that's how we built that space for young men. I had never sat in a men's circle in 2004. I was in a fraternity in college, but we just talked about parties and step shows and blue juice. You know what I'm saying? We didn't talk about emotions. You know what I'm saying? Like it was not about talk about how you feel. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like where there was probably if one maybe one conversation about emotions and it was an accident because somebody let an emotion out and everybody's like what's up with him. You know, I'm like, right,
Yeah,
so
like
it was
almost like
accidental
a
kind of.
fart,
Yeah,
everyone's feeling awkward, like, "Oh, who let that slip?" Don't be doing that.
somebody spoke the E word in this space. So yeah, but I had never even seen it happen, and but I saw when I created for them, it felt right. And it wasn't until 6 years later that I got invited to my first men's circle, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, this is what I've been trying to build." And I had done the best I could with what skills I had up until that point, but finally going to my first one was like, "This is it. This is the next chapter of my work of with the young men." And so I began as I got learning some things, I began to get better at my own emotional baggage. I'm like, oh, yeah. And so it was just an opportunity for growth and learning, right? Because I didn't know it was going to work. I didn't go in like I know this is going to work. Like I know how to build buildings. I know engineering. I can read some plans. I can build you a skyscraper. But to talk about how I feel was still a foreign concept to me myself. So even in the circle when we were talking about how we were going through, it was more of I was the teacher trying to be my best to support them. I wasn't I mean I shared a couple of things, but mostly I was holding space for them and I was carrying it all. But I had nowhere to have anybody help me carry my stuff. So I'm carrying their stuff and my stuff. And I probably, you could say, had a nervous breakdown maybe twice, because I didn't know I didn't even know it was a place that I could deal with my own stuff. But I was doing for them what I had never seen done for me. So it was I didn't have examples of it, right? But it was a journey. It was a journey of like when I found that men's circle, I'm like, oh, here's where I get to let go of my stuff. Like I don't need to let it go on with them necessarily. I got a group of my own men who I get to go to, and I get to now. I'm not when they tell me their stuff. As I began to learn my own stuff, I didn't carry their stuff. I heard it. Thank you, and I handed it back to them and said, "How can I support you with this?" Because it wasn't up to me to like wear all of their burdens. Like I heard one of my mentors say, "You can help 1,000, but you can't carry three on your back." So, like, how many people have I been trying can help if I just like learn that My job is not to carry all their stuff. I'm gonna go on the journey with you. You're gonna share it with me. I'm gonna be on that journey with you. What can I do to support you? But I can't like wear it because that would absolutely be what you do when you start carrying all these things around with you. And it's been, it's been a journey for my own self, right? I mean, I'm still on a men's team, and it's been life changing. And I'm so grateful for those men, the men who've come, the men who came for a season, the men who have been there since I joined 15 years ago, and the men who come for one meeting and just pop in and pop out. You know, all of them have added some value to the journey of me realizing this is the work that I'm here to do.
Yeah, it reminds me of what you were saying earlier, right? Of empowering the individual to own their life. And that's something for any guy listening out there. When you hear another guy wants to share something with me, what do I do, right? A lot of us kind of freak out or feel like, oh, I get uncomfortable. I wouldn't know what to do. I think you make such a good point. It's like our job is to have the capacity to receive it, to understand it, but then to have the empowerment to hand it back and just say, thank you so much. I'm here with you as you handle it, but I can't handle it directly for you. And just starting to know that that is where the bonds are built between us, right? Is that we temporarily share our burdens with each other so that we can feel known. But then that person is safe and loving enough to hand it back to us, not because they want to just let us suffer. Hands off, that's you to deal with. I'm gonna leave you. It's like you said about the kid earlier, right? Like you just want to know that someone cares and is with you in it. But the key is as you handle it. Like giving up, I'm not going to take it from you because I'm actually robbing you of the opportunity to be dignified, to find out what's inside you, to work through it, to be proud of yourself. Like you only get to be proud of yourself when you stick it out and find out for yourself and do it yourself, but with the support of others. And I think the lunch thing that you did was so brilliant too, man, because it keeps the main thing in humility. It's like, hey, the whole point isn't to get you a passing grade. It's not for me to get a promotion. It's not these outward metrics, man. It's like, I need to know how to teach. You need to know how to learn. And we have a relationship. Learn how to work together.
That's right.
So on that note, you've turned a mission into a movement between Ever Forward Club and then now the Global Young Men's Conference that happened not too long ago. This work has now reached across the world. How do you keep your eye on that original target, the essence, the spirit of what started you working with young men while everything around you wants to scale, like that engineering world that you came from?
Yeah, so and I want to add one thing you said before about those men who, when I say I can't take carry it for you, not only do I not, I am not unequipped to live your life for you. And I've learned as a mentor what I experienced early on was I thought when I gave young men advice, they were supposed to take it. So I had one young man, he came to the circle, he was like, I'm thinking about doing this thing. Should I do it? Everyone in the circle was like, no. I'm like, not a good idea. We all agreed he's not gonna do it. Then he did it, got himself kicked out of school. And I'm just like, what's going on here? And when that happened, that part of my soul that was hurt, that was angry, was realizing I thought that what I was doing was making sure that they never made any mistakes. That's not realistic. My job is to hold a place to say, you have a person who has experienced things and done some things and have made more mistakes than you ever have, but hopefully you will learn from these mistakes. And some you're gonna have to make your own. And so then when I recognize that even if I wanted to hold it with you, I would be mad at myself all the time because you're not doing the way I think you should do it, which is not what anybody should ever do. And so when you think about the conference, the Young Men's Conference, this is the conference, the shirt, Global Young Men's
That's a sick
Conference.
shirt.
Oh man, we're so excited. This is our first shirt. It's a writable shirt, so the mask you can actually write on here.
That's so cool.
Yeah, we're super juiced, and the next one we make won't have global conference. It'll just say Million Mask Movement, and it will be a place where people really want to share it. I mean, it's mine is blank, right? But if I wanted to write my words on here, I could write them on here or not, right? But this idea that there is this part of me that I'm letting people see, and this part that I'm not, and so I don't know why it took us 20 years to do our first Young Men's Conference. We did our first one last year. Like we're a program working with young men. Why haven't we done this before? Well, my mind was like trying to do it a different way. And I think that sometimes you just have to be ready for the ready when ready when you're ready. I guess that's the best way to say it. Like, I didn't even think I probably have thought I've presented at dozens of conferences, of youth conferences, and we've never put on our own. And so every year we were putting on an event. And this past year, actually 2025, this year in the spring, we put on an event. It was a dance-a-thon. Some of the young men was like, we don't want to do the 5K anymore. We want to do like a more of a fun thing, a celebration. I said, okay, let's make it into a dance-a-thon. We plan this event. It goes not well. And so I'm in the venue looking around like at the empty space and the fact that not a lot of people have shown up. And I was mad at myself. I was sad. I was frustrated. I made a little video, and the video was a pain from pain, hurt. Like I'm the leader, and I chose us to go down this road, and now it didn't work. And it was a moment of like, hmm, I may be trying to force something and trying to raise money because it was a idea of a fundraiser. I was trying to raise money in a way that is engaging youth and adults, and knowing that in the Bay Area, the way a lot of organizations raise money is through galas, right? Through galas and benefits and things like that. And I was trying to do it different, and I kept trying to push it and do it different. And I was like, maybe I finally have learned my lesson. Like, we're gonna have to do it a way that experience has taught us that it works here in the Bay Area, and we're going to do something different. And that's literally after realizing how we have been doing an event every Memorial Day for 20 plus years, 21 years. And for me, it was like, how do you let go of a tradition? And you have to realize, oh, well, you're living in a new world. So the tradition that you used to do doesn't work in this new world. And so it was a hard decision but I think that in my mind, it was a metric of like, people can see you've been doing this thing for a long time. And I think I measured it that I was consistent for 20 years, but I also want to be effective. And I think it's time to say, okay, so that Young Men's Conference really came out that November. I was like, this is what it's time to do. We're gonna get these young men together. We're gonna learn from them, like I did 20 plus years ago. I brought them into a room with some food and said, "What do I need to know about what you're going through that we need to do to make our community better?" And that's how it all came. And so last year was 2024 was the first one. This year was the second one, and we're already locking in the date for 2026, and it's gonna be even bigger. So it was about 100 young men attended this one next year. So we went from 56 to about 100, and so next year we're gonna get 100 young men in that room minimum. We're starting planning in February. So, and we're going to build a team. We're going to be a coalition of organizations and people who will care about young men. And we're going to build this, and we're going to have an amazing event. This year's event was, but we're just putting out the videos right now, but this year's event was beautiful, and next year is going to be even bigger. So super excited about that.
Yeah, no, and I love what you just said, how it sounds like the way that you maintain the spirit of what started the whole thing was by, and this sounds so simple, but in some ways, just doing that, right? You said you just gathered them in the room and you had a conversation and you got real and you had humility and say, what do you need? Where are we missing it? How can we work together? And I think that's so disarmingly effective in a world that is just, again, trying to scale, to brand, to market, to use these lofty words and visions and metrics when it sounds like, in your experience, the most valuable thing that you can ever do in the work with men in some ways is just being radically present and loving and helpful to the man that's in front of you. Now, there's a time for scale in the sense of like, how do we carry this message and communicate it and reach and facilitate as we grow? And, 100 guys, you can't look them all right dead in the face all at once, obviously. But the point of that is to say, to take that same spirit so that every one of those 100 guys that leaves, I know without a doubt left being like, someone looked at me, someone saw me, someone loved me, and someone cares enough just to ask questions about my life. And that in and of itself, I think is such a simple thing, but I think for a lot of us, that's the start if we really want to get into this.
Yeah. So great. So real. So real. No doubt. And I'm excited about the next chapter, right? That okay, we're coming back to the beginning. We're coming back to the way because 20 years, 21 years ago, every kid didn't have a cell phone in their pocket. So the world, the competition that they have to stay in the bed. We had 200 young men register, and only 100 showed up. That means 100 young men decided, yeah, I signed up. Now, for me, I'm really concerned about those 100. I'm like, I'm curious. We're going to do a survey with them. We're going to invite them to do a survey. What happened? Listen, it could be something small, like I didn't want to go to this thing, but it also can be a pattern that we see in communities where it's like, eh, my presence doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I don't show up. I think the small things and how does that show up in their other life? What other things do you commit to doing and don't do? Right? What are the things that you make a commitment to and you don't do? Who in your life has made a commitment and didn't keep it? How'd you feel about that? And I think how you help them process that idea, hopefully for their life, not for this conference, for their life is like, oh, I choose these decisions like an adult, and I don't even think about the consequences down the line. Like, who is it? Who am I becoming when I don't keep my word? But those are the things I'm excited about. So, and next year we'll have some even bigger topics. We'll have some speakers, and we're gonna have some bigger sponsors. And I think I can already envision it growing to something that who knows why we didn't see it 10, 20 years ago, but it was the right time. This was the right time. This is the right time that our community and our young men all over need the space to be able to take off those masks and be a part of a community that cares about them and that wants them to be their best selves, you know?
Yeah, no, I think that is the takeaway from this conversation overall is, men, we need you. We need you to show up to school, to work, to your relationships, to your families, to your communities. Like, we just need you to show up imperfectly as you are, but with the heart and desire to say, like, I matter. I matter enough to be here. Um, and not only that, but I matter enough to make a difference. So, Ashanti, I'm really thankful that you decided to show up and make that shift and to help other guys do the same. And I'm curious where people can find your work.
Yeah, you can find us on all social media platforms at Ever Forward Club, at Ever Forward Club altogether, no spaces, no symbols. Or you can find me, Branch Speaks, on anywhere where you are out in the social media world. Our website is everforwardclub.org. And if anybody wants to make a mask, I would say you can go to our website, look for a Million Mask Movement, click a button, make a mask anonymously, and maybe it will inspire you to talk to the people in your life. Tell them how you're really doing. Find the people you can trust because everyone doesn't deserve to hear it. But find the right people you can trust to be a part of that movement. And we look forward to seeing you. And if our work can support your organization, your school, your community, we have an advocates for young men, and we have a brotherhood that is directly for the young men. So, however we can support, we're trying to like make resources available to people out in the world. So, thank you so much.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for your time. And it's been such a gift hearing the work that you're doing. It's certainly something that I'll be highlighting and checking out. And, I think it's needed. And it sounds crazy, but it is radical what you're doing. But I think that's exactly what we need.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me. So good to be with you today.
Thank you. Until next time.
See you next time.